It's wonderful to see everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We have another distinguished speaker who's next on our list, Sheriff Paul Babeu from Pinal County, Arizona, who is America's Sheriff of the Year for 2011. Sheriff Babeu has emerged as a national leader on border security and is an outspoken critic of the federal government's abdication of its responsibilities to enforce our immigration laws. Sheriff Babeu has acted decisively to disrupt, dismantle, and destroy cartel activities. He's assisted Senator McCain and Senator Kyle with a 10-point border security plan. He has been active at every level, fighting for border security, trying to educate not only lawmakers, but the public about the impact of illegal immigration, the impact of an uncontrolled border, and what it means in stark terms in human lives and what is going on at the border. And this is a lesson that all Americans need to hear, and certainly, as Congressman Barletta said, our members in Washington need to hear this too. So it is a great honor for me to introduce Sheriff Paul Babeu.
The border is more secure than ever. Have you heard that before? I've heard it far too many times, and it's like a broken record. And Janet Napolitano and the Eric Holder, the Obama administration, has been saying this time and time again. And I believe lulling the American people into a false sense of security. And what I would like the opportunity to talk to you about today is all of these issues, not just illegal immigration. It's the issues of the drug cartels that we are fighting in Arizona. The largest smuggling routes in America come through Arizona, namely through Pinal County. And talking about the instability that's created because of the violence in Mexico from the drug cartels, 42,000 plus people who have been killed, who've lost their lives in Mexico with the Calderon government fighting the drug cartels. And a side issue to that, Fast and Furious. If you hadn't heard, you're going to hear about it today because it's a great threat to my deputies and all law enforcement in the Southwest. And then also the fourth part of this issue is that Mexico is the largest trading partner with my state, with Arizona, and second for our country. So this issue is far more complex. And when you start to talk about these issues and why I believe we have to have it as a part of our conversation, because it changes the conversation. It shows that we have an understanding that this is a far more complex issue that affects many aspects of our society, beginning, and it has to end with the rule of law. But it affects our national security, it affects our sense of fairness, and it affects our economy. And when we can speak to these issues with a greater understanding of them, I believe we win every time. Because I'm tired, sick and tired of being in an attempt to be shouted down somehow as I'm un-American, because I don't want to give away citizenship for people who have disrespected America, have defied the rule of law, and have come here. And this is where this argument often goes. That's the underpinning argument here, in that it's turned and it's devolved into race. It really has. And you have to call it what it is. And I've talked to some of the legislators who are here from various states, from Colorado and from Indiana and some of the other states. And we have a lot of states that are following Arizona. Some of them are a little bit further advanced, but we were the tip of the spear. And I'm going to start there. Why Arizona? And why is Pinal County so important to this? Because our county, Pinal County, Arizona, some people mispronounce it as Penal County. And we are into punishment, but not quite that much. And we have, our county, there's only 15 counties in Arizona. And Pinal County is larger than 3 small U.S. states. And we're larger geographically than the state of Connecticut. close to 5,400 square miles. Geographically, we're sandwiched in between Metro Phoenix and Metro Tucson. We cover that whole swath of area, approximately 70 miles north of the border with Mexico. And this is where people on the left often try to dismiss me as saying, well, he's not even on the border. What does he know? Well, the 3 counties south of Pinal County, Cochise, Santa Cruz, and Pima County, funnel all of their traffic into my county, into Pinal County. Both the natural terrain features shape to a choke point to Pinal County. Also, we have Interstate 10, Interstate 8, all the state and rural routes that come into my county. And we are the front lines, and never should this have ever gotten to this point where we're the front lines in this fight. And to put it as a benchmark, just last year alone, we had 212,000 illegals that were apprehended just in the Tucson sector. There's 9 sectors of the Border Patrol from California through Texas, and we have 2 of them. We have the Yuma sector, which actually goes over to the eastern part of California, and then the Tucson sector, which is ground zero. Nearly half of all the illegals that come into America come in through there. Now, that's a big number, isn't it? 212,000 people. Imagine that. Well, the Border Patrol says that that's a reflection of 1 out of every possible 3. That's their conservative estimate. By the way, how do you count people that you've never had contact with and you haven't interdicted or apprehended, right? That's a huge issue. That's a huge number, 400,000 plus people that are here. Well, breaking that down a little bit further, and 17% is the official figure of that number that have a criminal record already established in the United States. It's now become a law enforcement issue. It's become a public safety matter. Not just they've broken the law coming in here, and should we have an interest in who these people are? Absolutely, just from a security, public safety perspective. But the concerning part, that's just the population we can identify, okay? And that's just a criminal record here in America. This does not take into account their country of origin. And it's reasonable to believe that if they've established criminal records here in the United States, well, it's likely that where they hail from, they've also been involved in those sorts of activities as well. So that changes this whole, well, they're just dishwashers, or they're just landscapers, or, they just want to be here for our education and for health care. And, well, we know that. We're paying for that. We know those things. But this is where this argument and this discussion has been about, well, isn't this who we are as Americans? And I say, absolutely not. Quite the contrary. That the very foundation of America is about the rule of law. That the proud history of America and the strength of America is the fact that we have peoples from all over the world that are immigrants, including my ancestors. But we came here legally. This isn't about we're against immigration. We're against illegal immigration. That's the difference here. And when now this royal wave of the hand, or as this man said, the cloak, from President Obama, just arbitrarily injecting like he has the sole authority, saying that, well, we're not going to go after, these very attractive ones that are in school or have members in the military. So now we're starting to qualify and negotiate what laws we're going to enforce. That's like me. If you come to Pinal County and my call takers and dispatchers answer a call for help, and we say in reply to you, I'm sorry, we're just answering calls for homicide, armed robbery, and rape today. I'm sorry about the head-on collision or domestic violence or assault. We're really kind of busy. Imagine hearing that. Well, in Pinal County, Arizona, and throughout the state of Arizona, we enforce all the laws. We don't pick and choose. And by the way, Mr. President, that's our job. We're law enforcement officers. And for the president to think somehow he's like a king above the rule of law, well, the storyline for our great republic is the rule of law is king, not some elected leader. And that's where we have to get back to the basics of who we are, what our country's all about, and not be shouted down by this argument. Some people have said, you know, some of the elected officials here have actually had death threats against their life, or threats or attacks, and a lot of these are angry people who get caught into this argument about that it's about race or color or national origin. It has nothing to do with that. That's the underpinning of the other side, to try to think they can win the argument or there's going to be less aggressiveness. Well, we just had a shooting last week in Pinal County. One of our officers was in a shooting, and I'm transitioning to the drug cartels. And also the crime that has really gripped our state in Arizona, becoming the kidnap capital of America, if you didn't know that. Did you know that? Second in the world only to Mexico City. We've had countless people who have been kidnapped in Pinal County, countless people who have been kidnapped in Phoenix, brought to Pinal County, executed, or raped, or shot, left for dead. We've had numerous people. We've had a couple I like to put in a PowerPoint presentation, and one guy shot in the back twice, and this is what they're telling us. Mexican nationals who were kidnapped, targeted because of they're illegal, thinking that they're not going. Well, this whole issue of the chilling effect is false, because this is where we've been as a state, and we've learned the lessons that when you don't enforce the law, this is what you get. This is what you get. These people are targeted. And where's our sense of justice? This is our country, okay? And where have we bought into this concept that we're going to change who we are as a country for people who have broken our laws, defied our laws, and come here, and then we're not going to enforce the law on these people because they may be afraid that the cops are the bad guys? Well, who are they hearing this from? Well, they're hearing it from the president. And this literally, for me, as a Christian, I'm very forgiving. But I haven't yet got to the point where I can forgive the president. And the reason being is because it's the first president in the history of our country to make a direct assault against law enforcement, against the rule of law, when he said in Cambridge, the Cambridge police acted stupidly. And he went on in great length to talk about this as a racial issue. And then for us in Arizona, and this is where it's not about that, okay? In Arizona, to describe the story, have you heard the story where he describes a Hispanic father walking down Main Street with a daughter or son, hand in hand, okay? Very innocent image in people's mind. And then he adds an ice cream cone to the story. Well, he goes on with the story. Who's the bad guy in this story? It's one of my deputies. It's one of our police officers in Arizona. Well, we don't write the laws. We enforce the laws, right? And then he goes on to tell that this man, for no other reason but the color of his skin, the fact that he's Hispanic, is stopped by one of our protectors, one of our heroes, and demands papers. Well, this is a very deliberate story, folks, because the President of the United States doesn't share a story on national TV unless there's a point to it. Chooses his words very carefully. Well, I don't know if you've been to our state in Arizona. We do have some residents here. Aaron's from Cochise County over here, and some others. But if you're stopped by one of my deputies or me, because I still stop cars too, we'll ask for your license, registration, and proof of insurance. We don't ask for papers, okay? Over in Germany, Nazi Germany, they ask for papers. So this is when you use very specific words in a story when you're describing men and women, and I have 700 men and women who work full-time for my sheriff's office, and I know their character, and I know the threats that we face. And I know that 200 plus of my full-time employees are Hispanic. What is the president saying about them? This is where this issue has arrived at this point. When I mentioned the shooting last week, that a cartel member opens up fire on one of our officers working in our multi-agency task force, we're bringing the fight directly to the cartels. An AK-47, a handgun are taken into evidence and pounded into evidence from this. And we have to say, a suspected cartel member. I text off, and I was texting one of my fine deputies this morning, Ashton Shuey. And I'll pull his text up right here. And I said, Shuey, how's everything on the road? Because I know he was working last night. And he says, going good. I've got a vehicle out here abandoned, and I have foot sign of 3 walking towards I-8 in Viha, which is a traffic stop, or a truck stop. Got some ammo cans, rifle case, and machete inside. Waiting on Border Patrol to arrive. Could possibly be a RIP crew out here. What's a RIP crew? Yeah, a RIP crew are like bandits, okay? You've heard the term bandits, almost like pirates. These are foreign-born, almost exclusively foreign-born criminals that are on American soil robbing drug cartels of their drug load at gunpoint, 70 miles north of the border, 80 miles north of the border, 35 miles outside of America's 6th largest city, Phoenix, Arizona. We've had countless gunfights there. This officer obviously fired back. We've had cartel members killed by bandits, by RIP crews, because the reason why we refer to them as RIP crews, you don't often hear that term, is because a smaller element can flank or ambush a larger element of cartels coming by these very defined, very mature smuggling corridors through my county in the cover of darkness, or when they ambush them, there could only be 2 or 3 or 5 of them against a much larger force. And those of us who've served in the military understand the element of surprise is a multiplier in your ability to defeat an enemy. And they would seize their drugs. Thank you very much for walking 3 to 5 days with all those drugs, whether it's marijuana, the cash crop, or black tar heroin, or methamphetamine, or cocaine. And there's gunfights, people get killed. This is what one of my deputies are trained in, tracking sign and footprints and all of these. And I had a reporter ask me after one of these such incidents where one person was killed. We can prove it. We're not making this stuff up. There's a dead guy there with a bullet hole, okay? And then there's another person who was shot in the stomach, and 10 plus smugglers got away with their product, their drugs. And the reporter asked, well, Sheriff, why does it matter to you that they're killing each other? And I said, excuse me, but this is the United States of America. And the cartels are not going to bring their violence and their trash here unabated. That we're going to stand up and bring the fight to these people in the absence of the full enforcement of our federal agencies to fight this. How has it gotten to this point, and I'm saying this to us as having this discussion, how has it gotten to this point here in America that it's the job of the local sheriff to fight foreign cartels that are on American soil? That they have in one smuggling corridor, that where my deputy is right now, there's 100 lookout posts, or LPOPs, listening post observation posts, where they gather intelligence with binoculars, with night vision. Sometimes they're armed, oftentimes they're not armed. But they live there for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time, resupplied with food and water, telling the people that they work for through either cell phones or radios that they don't want for technology, and they call back and say, hey, the coast is clear, come on through, there's no deputies or border patrol here, or hold up, there's some activity here. That's how robust of an operation. We've gone out aggressively, partnered with all the 13 local police agencies in my jurisdiction, with the local border patrol, with ICE. We have a famous relationship with them. They're heroes. It's the people up top that are all screwed up, folks. Don't get it. We've gone out and brought the fight to these cartels, and to make a stand for 4 days, we'd arrest 103 people. 8-day operation, 212 people. Recovered stolen vehicles that were stolen from families in Arizona. weapons, and they're all 7, 8, 10 weapons, handguns, AK-47s, and they're prohibited possessors. The 212 people, there's only 5 or 6 people who are American citizens involved in this criminal syndicate. The problem is, we'd arrest those people, and this is how they'd regenerate in a very short order of time. That's the cartels. And when you look to Mexico, 42,000 plus people have been killed there. They're not just killing, they're just not collateral damage from the cartels in their war with the government. It is judges, mayors, police chiefs. 11 mayors were killed last year. So if you're the mayor and they kill you, who wants to be the mayor now? Right? This is what's gone on there. And then keep in mind the backdrop is they're our trading partner. This doesn't end well. And the fact that these cartels coming north. I want to get to this other issue because I don't have much time left and why it's a threat. And it just continues it dovetails with the whole federal government's standpoint on immigration, to not enforce the law. And in fact, instead of enforcing the law, they've aggressively attacked our state in the rule of law. Is this fast and furious? If you hadn't heard about it, I'm asking you to please pay special attention over the coming months, because this is going to get very interesting. That the U.S. Attorney for Arizona, Dennis Burke, just resigned in Arizona. This is the U.S. Attorney for Arizona, political appointment of the president through Eric Holder. Dennis Burke was planning to run for governor of my state in 2014. He was the chief of staff for Janet Napolitano when she was the governor. He's got his fingerprints all over this Fast and Furious, and he's not alone. Fast and Furious was a federal program for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, where they facilitated the straw buyer's purchase of 2,000 guns in largely Metro Phoenix, telling gun dealers, sell them the guns. Hey, we believe, the gun dealer says, we believe these are smugglers taking these guns to the drug cartels. We know. Let them walk. Gun walker. Let them walk. Okay? These guns ended up into the hands of the most violent criminals in North America. This is unconscionable that our government did this. And I have come out publicly and said, these people, whoever was involved, I don't care if they're an agent, I don't care if they're coming out and they're a whistleblower now, these people, all of them, are accomplices to murder, have committed crimes against our country, have committed crimes, have broken several treaties with a foreign country, Mexico, never telling even us in law enforcement in Arizona. I serve as the president of the Arizona Sheriff's Association, and we're a little PO'd right now. And the reason why, not just because 100 to 200 at least people in Mexico have been killed, there's still 1,500 guns missing. We have no idea where they are. That our government intentionally, deliberately planned to put them into the hands of criminals, that we're fighting, that my deputies could be tracking. Those 2 guns last week, we don't know if they're a part of Fast and Furious. What do you say to a family or to officers as they've been shot at by guns that our government facilitated? This is where Agent Brian Terry, our hero in the Border Patrol, was murdered on American soil by foreign-born thugs in Arizona. 2 guns. Months later, we find out, after we had to drag the truth out of this administration, there's no transparency. We live in a free society, a republic, and we had to demand this information, and it's been trickling out. They've lied, they've slow-goed information. There's whistleblowers that are saying they were deliberately told to not forfeit information. All these redacted reports. So again, a lot of this isn't known, but I've talked to some of these whistleblowers. Talked to Kent Terry, Agent Brian Terry's brother, who says, you know, Sheriff Paul, that the federal government still hasn't apologized to me, my mother, our family for this. The insult to the injury. Dennis Burke, before he resigned, you know what his last act was? And this is incredulous. They denied a routine motion to allow the family victim status in the court. That's what's going on here. That's how bad this has gotten, to silence people from this. This is a cover-up. This is a scandal that eclipses anything on the level of Watergate, where people broke in and stealing information, tracking, listening to political calculations, and then top leaders in our government, including the president, got wrapped in that and lied. And they rightly left. This is our government knowingly facilitating 2,000 weapons, not just semi-automatic, try fully automatic AK-47s, try 50 caliber rifles, weapons that my deputies don't even have that can shoot 1,000+ meters with precise accuracy. These are the weapons that can shoot propellants and explosive rounds. They're saying helicopters have been downed by these weapons in Mexico. Our government gave these to these criminals, and now people have been killed. And this is where I'm saying this is going to be big. And I believe it'll help change the conversation too, not only because of the perishable trust that's been harmed with this, with the federal government, but on this issue. We are in a fight out in Arizona. We're trying to stand up for the rule of law, pass our own laws, and ask for help. We don't get help. They send teams of lawyers to fight us in our state. They make my heroes, my protectors that I'm proud to serve as their coach and their leader, to be the villains. These are men and women of honor who swore an oath to protect and defend our Constitution, and some of them have laid down their lives for our families. And this is the treatment that we get. Well, we're not going to sit down. We're not going to shut up. We're going to stand up for America. We're going to stand up for the rule of law. This is about states' powers, states' rights. This is about taking the federal government, demanding that they do their job, tell the truth, hold them accountable. And I believe that in holding these people accountable, Dennis Burke was the first person to fall. Absolutely, I'm going to quicken, me and other elected sheriffs in our state are going to quicken the fall of Eric Holder, demanding that he resign, that he be fired. So on behalf of not just the sheriffs of Arizona, I saw our governor recently, many of you know and are fans. I just text Russell Pierce. We've got a lot of patriots, just like yourself and what you're doing, and we need your help. This isn't Arizona's problem, as you know. We hear it affects Hazleton, Pennsylvania. It affects the rest of the country. Illegal immigration, the drug cartels and their violence that they brought here, our economic concerns, and also the vulnerability. And I'm going to close with this and let you ponder. That if 400,000 plus people can make it in here, we have no clue who they are, where they're from, and where they are now in the United States. What does this tell us about people with military training or people who could be a part of a terrorist cell, given the 9/11 Commission that said, warned us at great lengths, remain vigilant, that this is their MO, to come from commands from afar, to come into our country, sleeper cells, and await, separate and apart, don't have to communicate, with pre-appointed times, places, dates, to bring havoc to our country. And if that many people can come into America without detection and they're basic illegals, the likelihood of these people, the most severe threats against our country to come in, and this is why this is a grave national security threat. So for all of these reasons, we must secure the border and enforce the rule of law and to protect our country and put America first. And instead, we got 28,600 soldiers today in Korea. Still, that war started in 1950. My 80-year-old dad was a sergeant in that war. And we're still there protecting, guarding, defending their border. What about standing up and protecting our border with 6,000 armed soldiers on the Mexican border? So, greetings from Arizona. Thank you for the warm welcome. I love and support FAIR and your role. You have helped advance this cause and this issue. So thank you.